changed everything. The way I walk, the way I breathe. Will my fate shift into the night? But here I am, same old thing. Thinking deep, no ecstasy. Reality haunts the living mind. If I saw another day, only to scream into the night. Nothing ever tries to change, even if I want to realize. 'Cause I've been sitting here, same old ways, thinking off about the same mistake. Darling, when you go away, it won't be as simple for you.
Yo, guys. It is Old Man G here, RDS, back again. I'm joined again by the amazing Tom, the journalist, and we're here to bring you the latest news, Manchester United transfer news and beyond. Obviously, we're going to start with Hojlund, AMRABAT, all the rest of it. But remember, if you are new to the channel, guys, it's 10:40 BST Britain time. If you're new to the channel, to like, share, and subscribe to Red Devil Studio. Follow us on Twitter and Twitch below, and smash the notification button so you know we're going to go live. Before we get into the news, the first thing I'm going to do is, first of all, I want to just thank everyone who tuned in to the Twitch live stream when we did the preseason stuff. I really appreciate it, everybody. From now on, I am going to be doing my live streams from Twitch. So all watch-alongs, match watch-alongs, all that stuff is actually going to be done via Twitch as well. I will probably from now on try and do some more live video stuff, like being on camera, etc. But it's just that with these late ones, it's just not the case, so to speak. So, but we'll see what happens. The other thing as well is that for those who obviously follows the channel, I do have a second channel called Red Marble. I posted the link in the description. I'm going to pin in the chat. That is my second channel. I do movie reviews, game reviews, anime reviews, commentary, all the rest of it. I'm trying to kind of hopefully get that to at least 500 subscribers by the end of the year. So if we can get that to 500 subscribers, that would be I'd really appreciate that. So subscribe to Red Marvel, to my secondary channel. And if you have any suggestions for movies, TV, things that you want me to review, let me know. Anyway, with that all aside, Tom, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing fine. G as always and everything, and yeah, thanks for having me back on everything, and yeah, hopefully we can provide a bit of an update regarding the transfer sort of side of things for Manchester United, and hopefully we're not going to have any technical problems like we had last time we tried to do one of these, and StreamYard wouldn't let me on.
Things happen. It happens. I mean, I'm having technical. That's why as soon as payday this month, I'm gonna be seeking for a new laptop, man. I really am. So I'm gonna be seeking for a new laptop. In fact, I might. Let me see if I can. I might just see if I can. See if I can come on camera actually. So I'm feeling a bit weird here. There we go. There you go. There's G. There's Old Man G here. Right. Okay. In my thingy. Right. Okay. So yeah, Tom, can you so Hojlund, are you 2 secs? Okay, we're back. Okay, so Tom's just away for a bit. Just a quick comment here. Are you reviewing Barbie? Big T says. I've not watched it. Do you want me to? If people want me to review Barbie, let me know in the chat, or better yet, let me know over Red Marble. If people want me to do that, I will review. I will review it. But if I'm honest, it's just I've not watched it because it's just not my it's not my thing. It's not my thing. Simple as that, really. It's not my thing. I never grew up with Barbie dolls. They weren't even in my house. Even my sister didn't really have them. Like, it's for me, it's just something that, like, you know, Americans, maybe some white British, you know, use. So I just never really interested in it. So, but it is what it is. We're just waiting for Tom to come back. Oh, he's back. Are you back there, Tom?
Yeah, I'm back, G. Sorry, I had a quick phone call.
No, it's okay. It's not the Glazers saying, come on, come back. You know, come back. You know, like, behave. Right, let's get into it, guys. Hope everyone I can see, man. This is surely green screen or whatever, you know. So, but I'm working on it. Hojlund United deal close, Tom. What are your thoughts on this Hojlund madness? And are Manchester United close to getting some sort of an agreement?
Well, the belief is really that, you know, from a lot of people, is that this deal really has been lined up for the last 3 months. And United have had personal terms established with the player in his camp pretty much just before the FA Cup final, in and around about that sort of time. They've had an agreement in place based upon a 5-year deal, and he would pretty much quadruple his wages that he's on currently right now at Atalanta if he were to jump ship to Manchester United. He's on hardly any. He's on like a youth player contract, whereas what a lot of people would see as being at Atalanta for a player of his age, of 20 years old. He's on a youth player's contract. If I'm being fair and honest, but based upon bringing him as the profile, that's what United have been targeting. They've been targeting a future superstar of a number 9, and they also, if they could have got one, they was looking at an experienced number 9 in that same frame, you know, a model that they were looking for. But the market for experienced number 9s isn't as vast and open as they had expected for a lot of the players that they potentially would have targeted as an experienced number 9. And we knew coming into this that Harry Kane was the number 9 that Erik ten Hag wanted. The Manchester United board were in agreement that they would try and get. But when they held preliminary intermediary talks with Tottenham and Daniel Levy, they were quoting figures of 125 million pounds for a player with 1 year on his contract.
Yeah, that's just too stupid.
It doesn't make any sense to do business at those sort of rates, and you know, you can see it from their perspective, Premier League rival and so forth. But with Hojlund, the feeling is that an agreement will come between Manchester United and Atalanta, and Atalanta set their stall out very high in the beginning, 100 million euros for Rasmus Hojlund, who, you know, has barely got more goals than his actual overall birth age. I think he's got 24 professional goals and he's 20 years old. Like, it's crazy when you think about it. But they have come down to a more reasonable playing field and figure. They want a package of 70 million euros plus. That's the sort of hearing figure that's coming out, that they want a package either inclusive of 70 million euros or more. And really, Manchester United had made a verbal offer. It would have been around lunchtime today. They put a verbal offer on the table to Atalanta, and they said, look, we'll offer you 50 million euros plus 10 million euros in add-ons, which 60 million euro package. They did the same with Mason Mount. They lowballed the offer. They did the same with Andre Onana. They lowballed the offer. And ultimately, those 2 deals that I've just said there with Mount and Onana, both of the players wanted to come. That was a key point. And I think in this case as well, Hojlund's another one. He wants to come. There's already been an agreement in place for months on a contract with Manchester United. Should he come in? And all you have to do is agree on the fee. And I think from Atalanta's perspective, they get a very hefty fee for an unknown prospect player from Italy who's had a couple of good international games for Denmark and maybe a bit of a okay patch post World Cup, really. That's the only time that Hojlund's really lit up any sort of league. But aside from that, I think on the player's perspective, he wants to come to Manchester United. Yeah, that's the understanding from everybody. He wants to come to Manchester United, and PSG, as people have been reporting, they are massively interested in Hojlund. because they've held talks with Juventus over Vlahovic, and the sort of wage package that Vlahovic's agent is wanting, PSG aren't willing to meet anywhere near. And he wants a huge signing on figure bonus to join. So they're pursuing other targets. And Rasmus Hojlund is one of those targets that they're looking at. Luis Campos has identified him as a brilliant.
Wait, sorry, Tom. Sorry
number 9.
to interrupt you, Tom. So you're telling me that PSG potentially are going into next season without Verratti, Messi, Mbappe, and potentially Neymar?
No, well, it's looking very likely that Neymar's going to stay out of the 3. Okay. Obviously, we know Messi's gone to into Miami, and the Mbappe situation, it's really complicated to try and explain. Like you said, the offer's there with Al Hilal, but Mbappe has completely dismissed it. He doesn't want to go to Saudi Arabia, and the feeling is that privately he's got an agreement in principle with Florentino Perez to go to Real Madrid in a year's time on a free transfer. But PSG won't let that happen. They will sell him for some money this summer if they can. And
can they though? They can't force a player to leave if he doesn't. I mean, they can punish him by pushing him in the reserves or maybe the 21s, wherever. If he doesn't, whether that's legal or not, I don't know.
They want a set fee. That's the message. They want a set fee, and when a Saudi Arabian club like Al Hilal come in and they offer you 300 million euros, which is upwards of 270 million pounds, for a player who doesn't want to be there and you want to get rid of, that is literally like heaven on a plate for you.
Of course.
You're getting a massive figure. Most of it's going to be up front rather than an installed payment because it's coming from Saudi Arabia. And also, it helps the player because he gets a big financial package. And then in a year's time, he could have gone to Real Madrid, but he doesn't want to go. That's the understanding. He does not want to go to Saudi Arabia. He wants to stay within European football. So, like you said, there is a situation where there is a lot of clubs that are interested in Mbappe. Manchester United are not one of those clubs, though, that are interested in it. And the only understanding that I had from a Premier League perspective was Chelsea had flirted with the idea when the news started coming out regarding that Mbappe didn't want to be at PSG, and then the president made the announcement around that we're looking to sell him, and it was all blown up into the public eye, and Chelsea had flirted with the idea, but they've been focused more on getting Casado, and they do want to pursue other targets.
Well, speaking of Chelsea, so there's a few comments. Chelsea low-key making great signings, but David Meme actually agrees and says, big up. I don't think Chelsea are making low-key signs, though they have no midfield. I hear they want to sell Conor Gallagher. They have sold all of their previous midfielders, no depth at the moment in time. I would agree. Like, I've seen them sell all their midfielders and think, okay, especially if they wanted Gallagher to go, even if they get Caicedo, who do you have? You have Caicedo, Enzo, and then who else? Like, I don't know what Chukwuemeka plays in. I don't know. It's a bit strange, you know. So.
Well, they're pursuing more midfielders. That was the thinking, and Amrabat, I think, is a conversation that's definitely gonna happen with Chelsea. Lavia, if Liverpool don't get an agreement in place with soon enough, I think Chelsea, if they can wrap up the Caicedo deal, they'd move straight onto the next target. They've done a lot of the business to secure themselves from breaching FFP, so they've got rid of a lot of players, which get them out of jail really from the FFP charges. So then now they can spend towards the end of the window if they wish to do so. But the market for midfielders isn't very open. I think it's a weird transfer window really because there isn't that many quality number 9s that are available in Manchester United's case. There isn't that many quality goalkeepers, as we was discussing when United were negotiating for Andre Onana. There isn't a lot of sought after goalkeepers in the world right now that are available for not a stupid price, upwards of £80 million. You're saying the exact same thing for midfielders. Buying quality nowadays is very hard, and the Saudi money that's getting flirted with players makes it a lot harder to do. Also, in other words, as well.
Sorry to forget, Mo. Just on your point, just to read comments that come to your point. I'll just interject because Mo Wallace says here: how does FFP survive now? The Saudis are part of the transfer market. Unless you wait for them to see the best players of Europe, they will have to reassess it. And that's a fair point, because I don't think anyone really saw this, because, because from my understanding, because obviously the Saudis are part of a different confederation, the whole FFP thing is more of like UEFA European thing than their thing, so much like, Champions League and all these leagues, like, so, so they have their own guidance. And if their concern is just like, no, if the person who owns the club has the money, if the only rule is if the person who owns the club has the money to suspend, they will, then, people can talk about European football quality, what have you, but like, you still can't ultimately compete with money.
No,
at the end of the day.
It is a fair point, and I guess the only real way that it's not just to do with UEFA. I think the Premier League has got a big hand to play in it, really, regarding what they do with the competitive structure, really. And do you allow open spending like you did 5 years ago, where owners of any team can put in upwards of £200 million every single year to a transfer kitty, to a stadium, idea remodeling or whatever? Like, it depends, because, as you said, with Saudi Arabia, to compete for players now is very hard to do. And soon enough, I think the conversation will have to happen within UEFA, because right now the Saudi model is, we want established players. We want players who have a name. That's what they want. But when they get all of those players, then you're going to move on to maybe players like Rasmus Hojlund, a young kid who has a brilliant high ceiling potentially for the future, and you can chuck him, like I say, he's basically on a youth contract at Atalanta. If you paid him £100,000 per week, that's upwards of nearly, maybe a quarter, 3/4 of what he's already earning already. Like, it's stupid money, really, in comparison for certain players. So young players is definitely going to be prospected soon. But the only, stumbling block to that is the conversation, I guess, if young players start going over there, as much as the established players will be, is there would have to be a conversation with UEFA about Champions League. There has to be. Or they're going to have to add them into the club, the UEFA Cup competition. They're going to have to do something, because you can't have that many high-profile players going to a league that UEFA doesn't contest as being competitive.
If I'm honest, I think the reality is that, like, there's going to be with the reality is, I think it's over anyway, because you've got to understand that, like, a lot of European teams are being bought, are being invested by Middle Eastern, Qatar, Saudi money. And I think overall this is part of the strategy. So I wouldn't be surprised. People saying we're fighting for, I don't think there's going to be any fighting. I think what you'll probably see is, you'll see more, much like you have like Al Nassr ex PSG. You're going to have more exhibition. You're going to have more. It's going to be less competition and more collaboration. Because why would say, why would say the owner of Newcastle, or potentially only of Manchester United, why would they want to not big up their respective nations' leagues or competitions, and also to maximize interest in those? You obviously get those clubs to come. So, to be honest, I think rather than competition, I think there'll be more collaboration and more insight. I think that's a difference, say, between China and America and stuff like that. Is that?
Yeah. The Saudi Pro League that's being built up right now, it is nothing anywhere near what China were doing. Nowhere near. China was, we're going to chuck money at the sports market. Football was, a prime sport at the time. We're going to chuck money at it. We've got no plan. We've got no infrastructure. We've got no modelling or sort of investment pot of money. They didn't put, say, $22 billion on the table and say, here's a piss pot to go and play with and make your own football league. They didn't do that. They was constructive in terms of how much they paid per player to go over there. Whereas Saudi Arabia, they'll pay you what they think you should be paid based upon you as a player, rather than, we'll just pay you to get you over here. Why not? And I mean, like you say, that the touted figures for the Cristiano Ronaldo contract at the time, which wasn't factual, but it wasn't that far off, really, the sort of numbers he was going to get to go over there. And the same thing with Lionel Messi. I think Lionel Messi was offered a 2-year deal with Al Hilal based upon £400,000 per week, which is, like you say, it's life-changing money. But he's probably going to earn maybe half of that, but he's going to be living in the US, playing for Inter Miami because of what Inter Miami will pay him, but also the deals that they have in place with sports organizations and the branding that the US market brings. So there is, like you said, that there is options there definitely for players. And Saudi Arabia, as I say, this isn't going to go away. This is here to stay. And for them to, and I used this before, they bought golf, if I'm being honest. As a sport, they bought golf. They challenged the PGA Tour. They set up their own tour. They paid golfers millions and millions of US dollars to jump ship. They offered Tiger Woods, one of the most high-profile golfers ever to pick up a club, $700 million US dollars to ditch the PGA Tour, which he's been loyal to for over 20 years, ditch it and come to play for the Live Golf Tour. Like, they was prepared to spend $700 million on Tiger Woods. So spending, as I say, putting in a bid or trying to spend £270 million on Kylian Mbappe, even if you get him for 1 year, they don't care. They don't care. You bring these players to our league and then we'll see. But the contestment, like I say, this is only just at the player stage now. This is and like they're trying it with managers. They've tried it with Marco Silva. They tried it with, they got Nuno Espirito Santo over there. And it wouldn't surprise me if they try and go for one of the more high-profile coaches if they're out of a job. It really wouldn't surprise me. Klopp leaves Liverpool or something in the next 2-3 years. They might make him a proposal. You never know. And as soon as you potentially have Champions League football within the Saudi, or you have a Champions League qualification spot within the Saudi Pro League, I don't know, you have to win the league to qualify or something like that. Like, whoever it wants to go over there, if you're at the best team, you're going to be playing Champions League football every single season.
Yep. The future is interesting. Let me just turn things back around, back to obviously Hojlund, so we sort of deviate a little bit, but an important point. So just because of Tom, just from your sources, how close is Hojlund? How close are we to here we go for Hojlund, basically, and for roughly what amounts are United agreeing with?
Well, the package that they'd offered today was 60 million euros. Okay. So closer to in and around, I think after the exchanges from today, I think it was roughly around the £54 million mark was the overall package that they put on the table. And Atalanta won upwards of £65 million overall, really. And I think, look, when the player, I think, is making it very clear that he wants to leave and he wants to go to Manchester United, but he's not, throwing up a fuss and putting in transfer requests or anything like that. But I think there is an incentive from Atalanta to know that this player, this is his dream move. And Man United doesn't come around very often for not only the player, but Atalanta is a club to try and get a big fee for. A club like Manchester United don't always negotiate with you for a player. So when they do, you've got to really get the best deal for yourself. And the way that United have run negotiations for the previous two deals that they've done, for the Mason Mount deal, like I say, Chelsea wanted £80 million at one point in time. They got them down to 55. They, Inter, as I said before, they wanted upwards of 65 million euros at one point in time. United got them to a rounded package where they only paid an initial payment of 43 million, which you can look at the negotiating figures from there and see that United are doing a lot better. And I think, really, from what I've heard, is that the structure isn't really the issue. Okay. It's the initial fee. Okay. Atalanta want a massive initial fee, and they're not really that bothered around the inclusive add-ons.
Okay.
And the reason why they're not bothered about the inclusive add-ons is the only add-ons that they're concerned that they would want inserted in there is if he was to win the Premier League or if he was to win the Champions League. That's all they care about. They're not bothered about how many goals he scores. They're not bothered about how many performances he makes. They're not bothered how many times he polishes his boots. They're not bothered. They just want the clauses where if he wins something at United, we get an extra €5 million or something figured like that. That's all they care about. You give us a big initial payment. Rasmus Hojlund's yours. You've already agreed terms with him. You can get him on a plane over to the US, Carrington, wherever. Get him to play with your squad. That's it. But until then, he's an Atalanta player. And the way really that Atalanta are really voicing out there is that they're not backing down. They want €70 million. And the only real way that I think there's going to be a breakthrough is if United stretch their arm out a bit more and they offer a package maybe inclusive of €55 million, something around that sort of figure, which would bring it to maybe £60 million as initial payment and €5 or so million in add-ons. And if you brought a package in and around about €65 million ballpark figure, and you say, look, we've come halfway, Atalanta, you come halfway, and if Atalanta aren't willing to come halfway, the understanding that I have it from Manchester United's perspective is they'll pull the plug on the whole thing. They haven't got any hesitation to pull the plug on the Hojlund deal and go in a different direction and throw money at another target, because they do have a couple more targets that they are actively looking at, and there is a communication with those other targets, agents, and also the clubs that they're with right now. So the Hojlund deal is what they want. Hojlund wants United and vice versa. But if Atalanta don't budge on the figure, the whole deal can collapse. And at last, that's where United are in terms of we won't overpay for Rasmus Hojlund when we can go off in a different direction and get a different player. Maybe that player, as I said before, that the discussion around it was players like Mohamed Kudus of Ajax, was Randall Colomwani of Eintracht Frankfurt.
Yes, exactly.
These kind of profile of players that United
are other targets.
Yeah, they are other targets, and United really they are prepared to go in a different direction if they need to. And the only real, I guess, perspective from United's case is they're not bothered how long this drags out for, because getting Hojlund to play maybe one game on the pre-season tour would be a stretch before the season anyway, depending on how well the negotiations go. But they've made an offer, so I guess now where we're at is you come to the domino effect. You make your first offer, completely lowball it. You make the second offer, which is what United's mantra has been. It's close to what Atalanta want. And then they make the third and final offer, meet us in the middle, or we're off in a different direction. They said with Mason Mount, if you don't accept it now, we'll go off and go and pursue Caicedo or somebody else. Andre Onana, you don't take him now, we'll look at alternative targets. And they got both of the deals done from there. But I think if Atalanta are going to be reasonable about it, I think if they look at the overall package for a player that's really only spent one season there, and they can make upwards of 45, 50 million euros profit on what they bought him for, I think it would be ridiculous, really, for them not to consider it.
But my only kind of span on the works, obviously, before we move on to talk about Amrabat. Before I quickly read some comments here. Shout to my man in the chat. Ten Hag must really believe in Hojlund. Rasmus is a traditional striker with no link-up play, so basically with Cristiano. If you go that far, Mega, what link-up play does Haaland have? And yet you saw what happened. So we'll just see. Do we play to him? Would a percentage of a sell-on fee sway them? That's a good question, Big T.
They're not looking at sort of sell-on fees or buyback clause. United don't ever tend to buy players that they have to give a percentage of a fee on. That's I could be wrong, but I can't recall any sort of clause that's been inserted in any player that United have bought, high-profile player anyway, that they've had to give a fee to sell on to. They've made losses on players, of course they have, but
Mm-hmm.
aside from that, I can't really think of one.
Mm.
So so in terms of a sell-on fee, I don't think that would really do anything. If anything, it might offend them, to be honest. But
No, I don't actually disagree. Sorry, just 2 seconds. Distracted. Like why is it? Yeah. Well, I mean, I think Moada answered your question. It's like his link-up play isn't that good, but his pressing is elite. Ronaldo was, yeah. So yeah, we can't really sort of go back to the Ronaldo thing. Let's keep it a stack. Right, yeah. So okay, fine. So Hojlund looking like it's a possibility. However, there is a chance that the deal could fall through, and United obviously do have other targets. And Atalanta to know that, because I mean, my I guess my question was kind of with the reports that PSG, obviously, as you said, are looking into it. How confident are United really they can get the deal done when PSG are like, well, you know what, where we can give you the money, maybe we can give you a higher salary. Is that more of a reason as to why United potentially might seek elsewhere?
No, it's not really a case of competing, because United know that the player wants to come to Manchester United.
Okay.
They've had an agreement, like I say, in and around the sort of FA Cup final sort of period, which was weeks ago. So there's been a long-standing agreement with the players' side. And as far as I understand with Rasmus Hojlund is, he's a boyhood Manchester United fan. So I guess that can play into it. But with how football's going now, pride and the price of what you can be offered, it's really, you either follow your dreams and your passion, which might be your boyhood club, or you follow the money. And PSG, I think, can easily blow Manchester United out of the water in terms of a contract. I don't even think that should be even a conversation, really. But the way United are looking at it, as I say, is they see it as that, well, we know that the player wants to come to us rather than go anywhere else. And if we can agree on a fair fee with Atalanta for Hojlund, then happily we'll do so. But if PSG, like you say, PSG are just lingering right now. They're like all they are is just a mosquito on Manchester United's back. They haven't made any sort of formal offer to Atalanta. As far as I understand, they only made contact with Atalanta 2 days ago to ask around about an evaluation of Hojlund, and they gave the same evaluation. We want 70 million euros plus, which, again, for a 20-year-old, PSG are going to look at this the same way Manchester United are. 70 million euros plus for a player who's 20 years old and only has 24 professional goals is a risk. But it's a risk that's worth taking if you believe that this player or your coach that you have at your club can do something with them. And if we're being fair and honest, if he was to go to PSG, he'd be working with Luis Enrique. Brilliant coach. If he was to come to Manchester United, he'd be working with Erik ten Hag. Brilliant coach. So really for him, as a coach, from his career's perspective, it's a good thing. And there is a level up to go there. But as far as I understand it with the PSG side of things, I don't expect them to bid yet, because, as I said before, their priority has been Dusan Vlahovic. So unless they can maybe negotiate in and around the terms of what sort of sign-on bonus he would want and the sort of overall package that Juventus would want to sell him, if they can maybe negotiate and work around that, then they'll go for Vlahovic. If they can get Vlahovic and they believe that a deal can be struck there with Juventus, they won't even consider Hojlund. The only reason why they're considering Hojlund is because the Vlahovic deal's stalling, because they can't agree on a fee and the players demanding and his agents are demanding too much. That's it. But from Hojlund's perspective, he wants to come to Manchester United, and United know this. Therefore, the panic around PSG, they don't see it as an issue, because if it come down to a straight, well, you've got a big bonusing contract on the table from PSG, but you've also got your boyhood club. Manchester United's understanding from what they know of the player and from what his agent, from the agency that he's been under for the last couple of weeks, the same agency currently as Eric Ten Hag, funnily enough, is that the voices from the agents have been that Manchester United, if there's an agreement in place with Atalanta, and if there's the contract offer still there with Manchester United and it doesn't get renegotiated or pulled away, he wants to take the United offer at all costs. So a PSG offer might still, as I said, you can offer him silly money and it still might not tempt him because he wants to come to Manchester United.
At all costs, yeah.
And the way really that I think a lot of players look at it nowadays, especially maybe with clubs like United, is that, and I think maybe with Andre Onana, this was a bit of food for thought, was that being the number one goalkeeper at Manchester United has not been a possibility for 10 years, for a decade. David De Gea has always been the number one. So as soon as that opportunity comes available, you have to take it, because you never know if you're ever going to get that opportunity ever again. In the same thing with Rasmus Hojlund, how many times in any player's career do you get the opportunity to be the number 9 at Manchester United? It's very rare. Very, very rare, because there's always supposedly a 20, 30 goal striker that should play at a club like Manchester United. So a player like Rasmus Hojlund, that would probably never be an opportunity that he would ever get. So now that it is a possibility, I mean, take it with both hands. And I guess, follow your dreams, really. So from Hojlund's perspective, he wants to come, and United believe that they can get the agreement in place with Atalanta. And as I said before, I think if Atalanta are going to be looking at it from a business model and perspective, getting €50 million profit on a player that you only bought a year ago for peanuts and has 4 more goals than his actual overall age, I mean, I'd see that as brilliant business.
I've just put in and speaking on the price, I've just put in a poll in the chat for you guys in the community, like how much should sorry about that. How much should Manchester United pay for Hojlund? Should they pay 40 million, 50 million, 60 million, or 70 million? So let me know in the chat, how much should Manchester United actually pay for Hojlund? I'll get to some questions and then we can just move on to AMRABAT actually. I'm just looking, I'm realizing my lighting is not good, so I'm going to fix that for next time. RSV says, if his link-up play isn't that good, then it must affect Rashford's output, as he's only a pace and power merchant and isn't really a chance creator who can create chance for him. That is true. Pace and power is a bit extreme, but yeah, I see your point. So like how many? I don't think of Rashford as someone who creates chances for forwards, and the reality is that one of the things that's been big for our number 9s, even if Martial's fit, even with Ronaldo, we just don't create enough chances for our forwards. We just don't. And I thought Sancho might change that. He hasn't really. So, if Hojlund isn't particularly creative, doesn't work in Lingard, like say, for example, Harry Kane is the ideal because he does do that. He's probably much better at it than Hojlund. But yeah, if he doesn't do that, then potentially we could have another Lukaku situation on our hands, and that wouldn't be good for anybody. Although this guy is young, so maybe he can learn, he can nurture. That's the only difference, So yes, because he's only 21, isn't he?
Yeah, Hojlund's 20.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's not like he's an aging player that can't sort of. So there's a possibility that he can learn and he can improve and he can get better at. That's the only difference, really, is that while he's still young, he can learn. But when you sort of get to your mid-20s, late 20s, and you still don't know how to do that, then it gets difficult to form new habits. But 21, he can learn. What's going on? Says United. I hope you're doing well, buddy. Rashford can run and shoot. That's it. Yeah, I mean, a lot of criticism for Rashford in here, but he signed a new contract. We've got to support him. Yeah, I think his unpolished needs work. So I'm surprised we're willing to pay so much for him, but Emtech wants him. So yeah, I mean, I think like anything, it's that if in 2 or 3 seasons this guy is now sort of scoring 25 plus goals a season, people obviously won't be saying anything. That's a big if. But obviously, people won't be saying anything if he does do that. I would definitely love to see Kane or Hojlund to come then. He may not press, but it can still score more goals and drop deep to say, well, the way I kind of see it is that if Bayern sign Kane, this transfer's over. And I knew for a fact at the beginning of it that there's no way no way at all that Levy would sell to a rival unless it was stupid money. But he doesn't mind selling to a non-rival club, i.e. Bayern Munich, for example. The only way Manchester United, in my opinion, get Hojlund is if Harry Kane decides not to join Bayern this summer. If he doesn't, I think United can offer Harry Kane a very substantial wage and he can play for United on a free. But the impression I get is that he's agreed terms with Bayern Munich. He wants to leave Spurs, and they're looking to get it done. Like, that's one of the reasons why I think Spurs aren't going to be a threat for me this season, because Spurs can't replace Harry Kane. So as far as I'm concerned, as soon as Kane goes, Spurs are nowhere near top 5. So the only teams that United have to worry about are Arsenal, Newcastle. I'm not even going to say Chelsea because their depth is squad. So Arsenal, Newcastle, probably a resurgent Liverpool or Manchester City. And we only need to get top 5. I'm not worried about Spurs, and to a certain extent, I'm not worried about Chelsea as of yet. We'll see what they do. Jason says 55 plus 5 million should seal the deal, so essentially 60 million. And I think just looking at the poll, most people say it was a split between 40 million and 50 million. So most people saying that about 50 million is actually too much. So that's interesting. But obviously, keep on voting, guys. Let's move on, actually, because we've talked for 40 minutes about this dude, or more or less this dude. AMRABAT, obviously. AMRABAT. Yeah, sorry, Eric says, yeah, Brighton and are not playing. You're right. They're not. I think this Premier League is going to be competitive. And I especially think now, that 5th place can potentially be a Champions League spot. 5th place can be a Champions League, and that I think opens up a lot. Because I think 5th place this season was
Europa League.
Yeah, no, but I mean, who was 5th place this season? It wasn't
Brighton. Brighton, I think.
Brighton, exactly.
Brighton, yeah.
So if 5th place is potentially a Champions League spot, for the English sides, it makes it even more interesting and even more competitive, because that 5th to 9th is going to be very, very interesting. And I wouldn't be surprised if a big team misses out, So yeah, you're right. They're not messing around. So I'm looking forward to the start of the season, man. So yeah, let's move on to AMRABAT. AMRABAT incoming. There's been a lot of talk about AMRABAT. I mean, I personally have my reservations about AMRABAT. I'll be honest, guys. I feel like there's an element of World Cup tax with this guy. I'm not saying this guy is bad, but I'm just not sure. I'm not 100%. We'll see what happens, and if he comes out, I'll support him. But considering we're letting Fred go, I just haven't seen enough from AMRABAT personally to think that he's a massive upgrade over Fred. That people are sort of saying that this guy is, and I would be very reluctant to pay more than 30 million for this guy. I mean, I don't know what you think, because if Fiorentina are asking for more than that, I think United should be able to go elsewhere, especially if we can get West Ham to pay 40 million for Scott McTominay, get some money for Fred, 50 million potentially for that. You've now got 55 million pounds, which we can go and get an actual top midfielder. But I don't know. What do you think about that? What are Fiorentina speaking about? Is there other midfield targets do United interested in? What's the lowdown, Tom?
In terms of AMRABAT, just to give, I guess, a bit of a backstory, was AMRABAT was one of the players that United had looked at in the January transfer window. This was off the back of the fantastic World Cup that he had with Morocco. And then when the January window was open, United had a big crisis where I think at one point in time they only had 3 available midfielders: Casemiro, Fernandes, and I could be wrong in thinking, I think it was McTominay. And they didn't have Fred; he was injured. They didn't have Eriksen because he had the layoff with the injury for 2 months. They didn't have Donny van de Beek, so the options and numbers were thin. They needed a lone emergency midfielder, and they looked and scoured the market, and it wasn't just Manchester United that looked at AMRABAT. Barcelona did the exact same thing, and what United wanted to do and what Barcelona wanted to do was both of the clubs offered to loan AMRABAT for the remainder of the season from Fiorentina, and they were prepared to offer 20 million euros as an option to buy. Not obligation, option, if they wanted to buy the player at the end of the season. And Fiorentina were still in the European Conference League, so they still potentially had a trophy that they could have won, which obviously they got to the final and they ended up losing to West Ham. In shades of whatever, and speak about that and look at whatever that you want. But in terms of the player right now, the bridge has been built between Manchester United and Fiorentina. There is an active communication between the two clubs, albeit it's only minor, around minor details. Would you be willing to sell Sofyan Amrabat? How much would you be willing to sell him for? What sort of package are you looking at? Are you looking for an initial a major blowout payment? Are you looking for more on the add-on side of things, and we give you performance-related add-ons or legacy-related add-ons if you was to win trophies? What are you looking for? What structure of a deal can we work with? That's the sort of conversation right now. But the priority from Manchester United is they want to get Rasmus Hojlund through the door at the same time while they ship out a couple more players. They want to sell a few more players. Fred, I think, is a big one that you can try and get an injection of cash from. You've already got 15 million guaranteed from Alanga. Henderson, it's looking more likely it was going to be a loan, but it's going to be an obligation that they have to buy him at the end of the season for a set fee, which could be 30 million. So United theoretically do have another 30 million from Henderson because that's guaranteed that it will come in. So there is options there for Manchester United if they wish to take them. And I think, especially from...
And what about the reports that West Ham... What's about the reports that West Ham... Because I'm obviously... I guess we'll talk about with the outgoings at the end. But, I think it's important to address the idea that, West Ham David Moyes wants Scott McTominay. And West Ham are prepared to, I'm hearing figures like 40 million. United's like, nah. And it's like, hang on a minute. Scott McTominay is an academy product. If someone's willing to pay 40 million for Scott McTominay, you take it. At 30 million, I'd be like, okay, fair enough. 20 million at a minimum, at least. But
the problem with that is that Manchester United's backroom staff and Eric Ten Hag, they like Scott McTominay as a squad player. They see Scott McTominay as the sort of player that if they need somebody to come in the team and do a job for them, they believe that they can rely upon him to do so.
Really?
That's the way that they look at it. I guess the best way that I can say it is that really out of Fred and McTominay, one or the other was going this summer. And it's looking more likely Fred based upon there's more interest in him.
Yeah.
Because you have Saudi clubs that are interested in him. You have Galatasaray that's sitting there. You have Fulham. You have so many different clubs. And it wouldn't surprise me if maybe a couple more Premiership clubs come in. Wolves have just lost Ruben Dias to Saudi Arabia. They could look at someone like Fred. Other midfield, profile players. Unai Emery might be looking for a similar profile of player if he loses a midfielder. So there is options there for Fred to stay in the Premier League. There's an option to go to Turkey and join Galatasaray, where there is Champions League football still. So if he wants to play European football, there is that option there. But also, then there is also potentially a big offer that you could get to come from Saudi Arabia, and you get a big payday at the end of your career. So there's options there. And the thing with McTominay is that because United see it as that if they get rid of one, they want to bring in one more with them. And the way that they're looking at it is that Man United really have 4 guaranteed players that are going to stay this summer. There's 4 guarantees of midfielders that are going to stay. That's Bruno Fernandes, Casemiro, Eriksen and Mason Mount, because he's just come through the door. Those 4 players won't leave. I'd be shocked unless a big offer came in from Saudi Arabia or something stupid. I think that those 4 players are for definite to stay at United. That's why I say Fred, McTominay, and Donny van de Beek, I think, as well, is another option. I said before that I believe that 2 of the 3 will go, and I'll stand by what I said. Because Donny van de Beek, I still think that there'll be a lot of propped up interest that'll come in for him, especially if maybe he gets a couple more games on the tour or he gets a couple of minutes. Same thing, like I say, McTominay is the option where they could potentially go to West Ham, as you just said. Fred attracted interest all around the world. So United have the interest in their midfielders. It's just a case of if they get the right figures. That's the way. And I guess from the McTominay perspective, the reason why United are looking at that and thinking we want to maximise however much money we can get from him is primarily because of what you just said. He's a youth player. So anything that you make straight on the balance sheet, and that impacts your FFP massively because you've paid nothing for that player. Whereas with Fred, you paid 50 million for him. You're going to make a loss of maybe 25, 30 million.
Yeah.
Which doesn't really help your FFP. It helps it a little, but it doesn't help it as much as maybe selling a youth player for 50 million. And that's why really you get to the McTominay figure.
Yeah, that's why I don't understand why they're not pushing McTominay to be sold. To be honest, for the reason I understand.
That's the way. Yeah,
but I understand. Let me just quickly read some comments. Go into it. Let's have a look. Arsenal says, yeah, signing Kane would be so difficult after all. Lee rejected a high bid from Chelsea and Modric and Real Madrid back in 2012. Exactly. I don't know why. I said this before with the whole Kane thing. I was like, nah, and people laughed at me, and I was like, and now people understand that. Like United fans are like, yeah, we're getting Kane. Like, we're not getting Kane because Daniel Lee won't sell. Like, what are you talking about, RDS? I'm like, yeah, we're not going to get Kane because Daniel Lee won't sell to a rival. Like, no, but what are you talking about, RDS? Like, no, we're not getting Kane. Okay, just listen to me. It's not going to happen. And then 2 months later, yeah, we're not getting Kane. So yeah, that wasn't. I never bought into the Kane to United hype. Certainly for under Daniel Levy, like it all. Also, I'm not too concerned about Newcastle. They'll be playing in the US next season and don't know what starts to its fixtures condition. I think, anyhow, as Mark Hughes, I think that's a bit harsh. I think the only thing I'll say is that I don't disagree with you, but the thing is that Newcastle are moving differently than, say, a Leicester or something. Like when they went to the Premier League. Yes, fixture congestion is a thing, but when you have money to strengthen your squad, because remember, part of the reason why Newcastle were able to make their push for top fours, they actually did good business in the January transfer window, and they were able to do so. That's the difference. Like Leicester, when they had their time in the Champions, they couldn't do that. Most other clubs, even United, quite frankly, couldn't do good January transfer business. They did do that. So that's why I would say, you can't sleep on Newcastle because unlike other clubs, they will have the money and the means to be able to obviously make signings now. And they have, the signing of Tonali and RV Barnes, assuming he's also fit, these are good signings. And in January, if you see something like that, like burnout congestion, you're like, right, we can go in and sign players in January. United aren't going to do that. United, we barely make good January transfer signings, to be honest. So yeah, it's an issue. Something goes, evening, honest, Blades, happy birthday. Oh, thank you so much. How did you know? By the way, how did you know? Is it on YouTube or something or Twitter? I don't know. It's on Twitter. I don't know. Maybe it's on Twitter or something. I don't know. So but yeah, I didn't really share anything like that. But yeah, it was my birthday yesterday. Smash a like if you want to wish me
happy birthday. Yeah,
thank you. Yeah, I'm obviously a year older, so but yeah, smash a like. Let me know. So consider becoming a member if you want to, or definitely subscribe to my second channel called Red Marvel. But yeah, I'm older. I had a good time, so yeah, it's all good. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. Yeah, 20 likes. Get those likes up, guys. Big up the truth. Get up from the truth. Morta says I like Amrabat, but I've also been impressed with Mainu and Hannibal in that deep role. I think yes. I think and when we talk about outgoings, I think Mainu looks good. Mainu looks good, and for me, if we're talking about the youth players that I think should be given a first-team chance this season, it's Mainu and Amad. Now, Amad has obviously got that injury, but hopefully it doesn't mean it. But we can't have a situation where these guys just rot on the bench for the whole season. Like if you're not going to play them, if they're not going to have a significant role in the squad, whether that's even playing FA Cup and Europa League games or occasionally, to be honest, to me, so far, Casemiro, Mainu, and like a Bruno Mount is more balanced. So then playing Mount where Casemiro is, personally for me. But at the end, if you're not going to play them, loan them out.
I mean, with Kobe Maino, he's attracted a lot of loan interest.
He has.
And the funny thing is to say that he's never had a loan before, and all he's done really from last season was been more of a learn from the players that are here. That's all he's really done. He's been in the training ground every single day, He's done a lot of physical work. I think that's clear to see. He has bulked up a lot for an 18-year-old player. And then to then have, like you say, the opportunity that he's had on the tour in the snippets that we've seen of him, it's improvement. You can see that in the player. And I think from one thing that a lot of people anyway touched upon was the video that circulated around Eric Ten Hag and the sort of conversation he had with Kobe Mainoo when they were at Wembley. And a lot of people read into that, like, is there something that Eric Ten Hag sees in this player? And clearly there is. And I think from, Eric Ten Hag's perspective, from what I know around him and what he believes with Kobe Mainoo is, he believes that Kobe Mainoo is ready. And the one thing I know with Ten Hag, whenever he brings young players in, and it doesn't matter where he brings them in from, when he was at Utrecht, wherever he was at Ajax or now at Manchester United, he will only give young players a chance if they are ready to play. He's not here for, well, they've shown a potential, promise on loan, or they've scored, ridiculous goals in a European league, or they've been a part of an integral promotion campaign. He's not bothered about that. The way Eric Ten Hag judges a young player is, are you ready to play for me? And if you're not ready to play for me, you won't play. And I think it proves a point, really, when the only real youth superstar that made it last season and got a lot of opportunities was Garnacho. And he didn't really get that many, if we're being fair and honest. He got a few, but he didn't get maybe as many as that a lot of people would have expected him to have got. Maybe more so than that he might get this season. And I think the way that Ten Hag runs it is, he's going to annoy a lot of United fans. I think that's very clear. So it wouldn't surprise me if maybe towards the end of the window you have a situation where maybe Pellistri and Ahmad go back out on loan. If he doesn't think these players are ready, you'll know by the case of who he sends out on loan. And I think it was very telling by who he took on the tour and who he didn't. You take players like Hannibal and Kobe Mainoo on the tour because you've seen something with those players. He's seen something, from as far as I know, with Hannibal that he liked when he was on loan at Birmingham City. He likes that sort of rational player who, can have a bit of a kickabout, have a bit of a war, almost like a mosquito player. And that's the sort of profile that I've always been described around that sort of player. It's very hard to describe. It's an unorthodox sort of midfielder to have because he's got a lot of different attributes, but he's just an annoying player. Every time you look over your shoulder, that sort of player's there. That's the one thing that I think, and especially in big games, that can potentially come in handy in the future. For example, you need a player to stick on Kevin De Bruyne. Hannibal Mejbri is a brilliant player to do it. Fred's done it for a couple of seasons for Manchester United. So there is certain skill sets that suit certain players. But especially with Kobe Mainoo, he's attracted a lot of loan interest from Premier League clubs and abroad. And the answer from United has been a strong no. He is not for. He's not for sale. He's not for loan. He's not for anything. He's staying at Manchester United. And I think when I look at that, that's a statement from the manager to say, "You're ready. You're ready to play for me." And he's not even had to send that player out on loan. And that's why I think it'll judge the way that you can understand how Ten Hag works is when he said this at the end, when the transfer window is all said and done. I'll be very shocked. I think a lot of United fans will be very, maybe not angry at him, but they'll be surprised with some of the players that he does send out on loan. Because he might send one of your favourite young players out on loan that you think's ready, but he doesn't think's ready to play for him. And it's what he believes is best for Manchester United, not what he thinks the fans think. And I think that's telltale in terms of what he's done previously. The Ronaldo situation, dealt with it. David De Gea situation, dealt with it. He'll deal with the big players. So if he knows how to deal with big, high-profile players, trust me, he knows how to deal with young players. It's a completely different kettle of fish.
That's fair. That's fair. Thanks for that, Tom, and appreciate the update. I'll just quickly read some comments, and we'll just have a final talk about AMRABAT, and we'll go to outgoings. I'm very skeptical of AMRABAT's sales fee. The World Cup hype is just going too far. If we have a proper sporting director, we would be after players like Maxence. How is it spelled? I can't even remember the surname.
Maxence. I think he's Croquettes.
Croquet, and then Menu Kone, etc. Possibly. I mean, obviously, everyone says about what happens if Ralph Ragnick was still at Manchester United, but things were different. Probably, who knows? Gene Ho says United bid 35 for Amrabat. I mean, I don't have an official bid as of yet. From what I can see, Gene. Stephanie says, looks like mainly playing later on versus Madrid. Do you think he could be our Caicedo alternative? Maybe not this season, but next. Caicedo is interesting because it looks like Chelsea are not. There seems to be an impasse. It looks like Chelsea are going elsewhere, which I suspected because I told certain men that were gassing about Caicedo coming to Chelsea that Brighton were not going to budge over 100 mil because like it's logical. I was like, listen, Arsenal went for Caicedo in January and offered about, I think, 80 million.
They offered 80, yeah.
And they were like, no, 100 mil or no dice.
The funny thing, The funny thing with the Arsenal bid was they only wanted to keep Caicedo because there was potential that they could make Europe. Potentially, if they couldn't make Europe, I would have been shocked if they would not took that sort of money in January. That was the thinking from Brighton. We want to make sure that we secure European football, and then our star players, if they want to leave and go elsewhere, that's fine. And the way that they look at it with Caicedo is, they think Caicedo is a better player than Declan Rice will ever be.
Yes,
that's what they think. And they think if you're charging 100 million, if West Ham have just got 100 million pounds out of Arsenal, and you've just blown up a madness in the January window and spent 120 million pounds, where you can cough up, you spent 100 million on Enzo, a player who had barely even played half a season at Benfica and had one good World Cup. You spent 100 million pounds on him. Whereas Caicedo has been in this league for nearly 2-3 years now. He's an established international player. He plays at the highest level really for Brighton that he can, and he plays pretty much every single game. What more do you want? You know he's a good player, otherwise you wouldn't be at the table trying to get him.
Exactly.
So this impasse that Chelsea are missing and lacking in terms of it. I mean, Chelsea's window in terms of getting players has been a shambles. They want to do Garte. They got blown out of the market by PSG. They were sniffing in and around Declan Rice, and then City blew the bomb into the race, and then they bottled it there.
There were even reports they wanted Onana potentially, but United.
With Onana's and his agent, they weren't really. Well, what I knew anyway with Onana was he didn't really want to move to London.
Yeah,
that was the sort of feeling there, and the manager, working with your former manager, I guess that plays a hand in it as well to come to United. But
true, yeah, true.
Chelsea really, they haven't done great business. They've done a lot of good business selling players, but
Tom, I'm told that Chelsea are going to cook next season, though. That's what I've been told. I've been told that Chelsea are going to cook next season.
How can what I don't understand is how can you cook when you don't have oil? What are you cooking? Air.
That's a good one. I'm going to use that next time I come to Chelsea fans. How can you guys cook when you don't have oil? I'm going to use that, man. There's no oil in the cupboard. No oil. You forgot to pay the electric meter. I mean, I don't know. There's literally there's nothing to describe it. But the only logic that you can look at it from Chelsea's perspective is that from when they did the madness in January, they want to maybe be a bit more constrained on spending. But I mean, they spent that much money, and they've probably gone backwards than they have gone forwards. Let me quickly go to the concept. Eric Scott can't even do a job for you. I don't understand what they see in him. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go into bed about Scott McTominay again, but I can't. I've said this for like ages about Scott. What I feel like is I don't feel like we are utilizing him in his best position. If you actually put him in a more advanced position, I think he's definitely a goal threat, because people forget he was a striker. He was a striker at one point. So when he's actually more forward with his shots, he's actually a goal threat.
He's box to box, yeah.
And it can be quite box to box, but when they play him in a deeper role, it just doesn't work. it's not his position, So it is what it is. Pierre Provis got so many goals and possibly Hannibal lined up as an alternate squad player. Fair enough. Shout out to Christian. Hola, amigo. Hope you're doing well from Rossnar TV, to which I need to stop by at some point to ask Roy a few things. Let's have a look going on. If we get 100 million combined for Henderson, Fred, McTominay, and Maguire, would you be happy? Stephanie, if I'm honest, I don't think we're going to be selling Maguire. It looks like Maguire is not going anywhere. McTominay, if we can get, and we'll talk about outgoings in a second, if we can get, as it stands, I'll probably get, if we could get 40 mil from McTominay, that'd be great. If West Ham are prepared to give that. And obviously, Tom will talk about in a second. 50 mil for Fred, probably. And then 30 mil for Henderson. So that is about 85 million.
Yeah.
I think reasonable for those three. I don't think we're going to be selling Maguire anytime soon, So, and obviously bear in mind that I think we're near to saying buy as well. So buy is being sold. And I think it looks like maybe 20 mil. So, but we'll talk about outgoings in a second. Yes, we'll talk about the prices of that in a second. Okay, I won't read the responses to. Yeah, but Kane can't reject Bayern. Probably he can't. He can't. Shout out to JavaScript in the chat. Thank you. Oh yeah, thank you everybody for. Oh, you told us. You told us last week. Oh, that's why. Well, thanks for you remembered, Stephanie. You remembered. That's good. That's good. That's good. That is good. So, and for fact, people remember what I say before. So that shows the impact of a community. So, thank you so much. So Stephanie's obviously one of the new mods, so make sure you treat her with respect. And thank you for your support for the channel, Stephanie. Appreciate it. Yeah, congratulations, buddy. Happy birthday, United. Happy birthday, RDS. Oh, thank you, guys. I appreciate it. I do. I can't wait for this season to start. I think there's at least 7 teams, if not 8, that could seriously challenge for top 4. Going to be a roller coaster. Yeah, I think like anything, I think you're gonna have that. But I also think I'm interested to see the team that's going to implode, because one of the traditional top 7-8 teams is going to implode. And right now, my theory is that it's going to be Spurs. Right now, because I think if Kane leaves Spurs and Spurs don't sign a replacement, I generally don't know where the goals are going to come from for Spurs.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Even looking at that with Spurs, can you replace him?
No.
It's very rare that you get a 30-goal striker or 25, 30-goal striker ever. Especially that can make it in the Premier League. It's rare. I mean, Haaland ripped up the rule book last season, but Kane was the next best thing after that. And really, before Haaland was here, he was the best thing in this league, goal scoring wise. So, like you said, that there's a situation there. As soon as that goes away, that's 30 goals out of Spurs' season. And I mean, Harry Kane's goals, especially in some of the nitty-gritty games, it wins them games and it gets them points. So, like you said, there is a situation where Spurs they can fall off massively, and they don't improve players. I think that's been clear. I think for what they've got now with the manager, I think it's the right manager at the right time. A project manager, not a brilliant name or a winner or anything like that. A project manager, and build something. That's what you need to do. You need to build something. And I mean, don't even get me started with what their owner's been doing today. I mean, Joe Lewis is doing a madness over in the US. So don't even.
Jeez, man. Yeah, their owner. Jeez, man. It's looking
been indicated in court, impeached.
It's looking peak for Spurs right now. This is what I'm saying. All the signs point to a Spurs implosion, to be honest. But
I mean, the amount of corruption and scandals that's been in Spurs, like you had the Paratici one. They didn't have a sporting director. That got taken away from them.
Exactly.
The owner right now is basically control of the club's being taken away from him.
Exactly.
So they've got basically they don't really have a sporting director.
Yeah.
They don't really have an owner.
Yeah.
They only really just got a manager. which took them ages to still appoint as well.
Exactly.
And they've signed. I think they've only signed one player. Have they not? James
It's
Maddison.
wild. It's
and
wild.
the goalkeeper too. That two players then, but that's it.
It's wild. And then obviously with potentially your biggest goal scoring Kane leaving, it's wild. It's wild. It's wild. Big up Tom.
Big up.
Breaking news. McTominay told Aaron Glazer he wants to venture with myself. Probably not. I think he had an injury last year too. He would have been a bit more involved because yes, with Ahmad's injury. Yes, so I agree. It happened a bit earlier this season, I think. Jarvis again the question: who would you keep in the squad for next season? Hannibal or Mainu? You can only choose. Now that's a good one. In fact, I'll put that as a poll. That's a very good question. I'm going to end the current poll, which just I'll just quickly. Come on, where are we? Yeah, 25 votes, and I think people, not 25. Let's keep it going. My 2 seconds. I don't know what's happening with my right because it's time. But anyway, 40 votes, and basically most people would say that United should pay roughly roughly 50 million max for Hojlund. So fair enough. I will just change and just add another poll. So yeah, that's actually a really good question. Hannibal or Mainu? I think I have a feeling who people will pick. But yeah, let me know in the poll and in the chat as well. Who should be in the squad? And that's been posted just now. So let me know your thoughts. Very good question. McTominay pushing for a move next few days. I mean, he's not really been vocal about it, has he? He's not put in a transfer request at all. He's not. He's not. Eric says the fact that Mainu wasn't playing against Wrexham shows you where he stands out to Ten Hag. He's firmly in the first team plans. Yep, I agree. And he'll be playing, I think, against Madrid tonight. Confidence high with Fred. McTominay will leave the club this summer. Well, we'll see. Like I said, I think I've still got to be worried about AMRABAT tomorrow. Mainu could be onto the... Yeah, it's what people saying. It could be. It could be. I still would love to go for Caicedo. But, I mean, is it really a priority to spend 100 mil to Brighton to give them that unless we have a player that we can give? Because I think, to be honest, Brighton aren't giving it because they wanted a Colwell, who Chelsea said no. If we could give Brighton a Maguire, a McTominay, and then pay 70 mil, then I'd be like, okay, fair enough. 70 mil and a McTominay or Maguire, fine. Even a Freddie, fine. But I don't think that's that case, unfortunately.
It's not their style of player. That's the problem.
No,
it's not their style.
Java says, I would keep Hannibal based on his maturity. We saw yesterday how he has grown. He's a kind of a hothead, but kept his head cool yesterday despite getting kicked down all game. Yeah, they were kicking him a lot. And there was 4 games of Champions League. So yeah, he played with Birmingham. I mean, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. I think the question is just that, if he's not going to be playing consistently, I feel like with Mainu, like I said, it potentially addresses that Caicedo problem. Does Hannibal? And if he doesn't, how much game time is he going to get? Because I think Ten Hag has got to pick between one, and one of them has got to go on loan again, I think. And I think Hannibal does have offers as well, but we're going to talk about it in a second. I like when Ralph Wenger told him what United supposed to source it. Well, he's not here anymore. Youngsters need a pathway. Remove McFred, keep both Hannibal. Well, I think as well. We're going to talk about outgoings in a second. I think So in that, I'll just see if there's any to see any comments. There's a lot of comments going, so I'll come back to them. Let's quickly just sort of go and let's talk about it now, actually, because a lot of people we're talking about the outgoings as opposed to talking about AMRABAT. So let's actually talk about the outgoings. So I'm going to quickly go back to this slide. Let's talk about outgoings now. So Fred, I guess, and Tom, you can take in which order you can take. But from what I understand, so we want to talk about Fred. We want to talk about, because Teles, obviously, that's been done. We want to talk about Henderson. We want to talk about McTominay, and we want to talk about Bay. I think,
Mhm.
and obviously Alanga is gone, and
Yeah,
shouts
yeah.
hope he does well at Nottingham Forest. But yeah, those are the four main players. I think Bay, Henderson, McTominay, and Fred.
Mhm.
What the four? If there's any news about Maguire going, please let me know. But what do you know regarding Manchester United's current outgoings?
Well, in terms of Fred, as we discussed earlier, was that as I said, a couple of Saudi Arabian clubs are looking at him. El Ettifaq are one of the Saudi Arabian clubs that I know are looking at Fred. That's not one of the four PAF owned football clubs. So that's not one of the Saudi Arabian clubs that's heavily financed and funded by PAF and the Saudi Pro
Mm,
League. So
mm,
in terms of that,
mm,
it's not really a major. It's not one of the big hitters out of the four. But on the other hand, one of the big hitters in Al Hilal are one of the clubs that are interested in
mm,
Fred. And they want to add a
mm,
midfielder. And look, you could have a situation where a couple of the other Saudi clubs might come to the party and say, "Listen, we want a piece of we want a piece of this deal. Why not? It's a cheap little deal. Offer him a contract and so forth." So,
mm,
as far as I understand from right now, Al Hilal and Al Ettifaq are two of the clubs that are interested in him. You
mm,
also have a situation where Fulham are a Premier League club that are interested in investing in Fred right now, but
mm,
they were looking more £10 million mark. And look, they've got the Mitrovic situation, which still needs to be resolved.
mm,
They've brought in a replacement in Jimenez, so I think that maybe sparks more towards going out and outgoing. They have a lot of interest in one of their midfielders already in Paulinho, which I think what Marco Silva's plan was going into the season was that he wanted to keep Paulinho, but he also wanted to have a very erratic sort of box to box sort of player. And Fred fits the bill really of that sort of profile.
mm,
Energetic, box to box, gets about the field. And really, against going with someone like a Paulinho, it fits,
mm,
really. It's a decent partnership,
mm,
especially making it maybe in the Premier League. But United had always looked around the £20 million mark.
mm,
That was the feeling. Galatasaray put in I think it was a €10 million bid. So I think it was
mm,
around about £8 million or something at the time, which rejected out of hand straight away by Manchester United. They wanted a £20 million sort of figure, and like I say, you have the Saudi Arabian clubs, you have with Galatasaray, and you have Fulham right now, and it wouldn't surprise me if there's a couple more clubs that come to the table. I'd be shocked maybe if you don't get an Italian club maybe that might come out at some point. You could have a situation potentially where if, as you said, AC Milan just lost Tonali.
mm,
Inter Milan always look for a decent deal for a midfielder. You could have a situation where Fred might slot into one of those Italian teams. So there's a lot of opportunities for Fred, and I think Fred's likely to probably leave Manchester United, if I'm being honest. Henderson, as far as we're aware with Dean Henderson, is that he's looking very likely he will join Nottingham Forest and Steve Cooper's team. And United initially they were looking more for a straight buyout, and the way that Nottingham Forest have planned for their spending this summer, they want to bring Henderson in on a loan, and they
mm,
had originally proposed an option to buy of £25 to £30 million.
mm,
But Manchester United have now turned the screw and said, well, we were looking at selling, but we will give you him on loan so long as you are obligated to buy him for this price at the end of that season. And that fits because they don't have to pay it now, but they can pay it in next summer's budget to get a number one goalkeeper. And they can still keep Dean Henderson on loan for this season. And then they also get exactly the same thing where they have Keylor Navas already. So the goalkeeping sort of racks at Nottingham Forest is stacked, really. And
mm,
United then know that they have 25 to £30 million coming in next summer.
mm,
So technically it doesn't affect this budget this summer, but it does. Because you still know that you're going to get that money later down the line. If it is to be an obligation, which it's looking likely it will be. Eric Bailly, from what I knew, was Marseille did look at bringing him in,
mm,
but they're not looking at paying. The way that I thought with Marseille was that they were looking at around €5 million for
mm,
Eric Bailly. And United were looking more 10 million euros upwards of that figure. And if they can get more, then they can get more. Saudi Arabian clubs, one of the 4 PAF-owned football clubs or ownership clubs, the one that Cristiano Ronaldo's in Al Nassr, are interested in Eric Bailly, and United, I'm sure they'd try and squeeze as much out of the deal that they can possibly if that was to go through and so on. And I think it's very likely that Eric Bailly will potentially move on from Manchester United, either in a loan capacity or permanently. I don't think he would really fit the model for Manchester United. They already have 4 centre-backs at this current time that are well placed to take up an option, and Luke Shaw can always fit in to make a 5th option. So there's a lot of competition for places in those areas. So I think Eric Bailly's probably the best option would probably be to leave United and go elsewhere and potentially get game time, but also maybe make a couple of money at the end of his career. And we go to McTominay. West Ham, as I said before, have got the interest in there. And David Moyes.
The rumours, of course, that is. I'm hearing 40 mil, up to 40 mil. Is that something? Was that what United want for him?
That's more or less what West Ham would be wanting to pay over the odds for to get him.
Come on,
that's
man!
That's what they want over the heads.
Take the money. 40 mil for an academy player. Like, that's probably the highest we sold for an academy player. Like, ever?
But the way that United look at it is, well, you've just got £100 million, in 2 instalment payment. You've got upwards of £70 million payment straight away from Arsenal. So we know you have at least £70 million to buy a midfielder. So you can pay us what we want for Scott McTominay, and if you don't, well, he's our player.
Oh.
That's the way that Manchester United look at it. And people's reactions can look at it from that perspective, but Manchester United very rarely sell a youth player anyway for upwards of £50 million. So if they can do that,
if McTominay wasn't surplus to requirements, like I get it, but Basmati was like a key player. Scott McTominay is like surplus to requirements, so it's like, okay, especially if we're going to sign AMRABAT, which is, and in fact, I think that Mo even says, are we going to sign AMRABAT? So if we are, keep Hannibal, because if we sign AMRABAT, does Kobe Mainoo even get a chance? Giles actually has one question before we go on about Scott. It says, do you have any insight onto, because it might be just for education purposes for the channel people watching, do you have any insight on the whole Joe Lewis inside trading allegations? How would it affect Spurs? Just as a brief kind of aside.
Well, the sort of understanding that I have is that with how it works with the sort of trading is, some of Joe Lewis's companies that are linked to his family in Enoch Sports Investments, the sort of money that they invest in businesses and in certain trading aspects via, say, for example, New York Stock Exchange, which, as I've discussed with the Glazer family and how that works with Manchester United before, the way that it looks is that from the company perspective, not so much Joe Lewis himself, but the company, is that there's been a pattern where from 2013 up to 2021, through the market, their registered company and the sort of investment payments that they've paid very little to invest, and they've made ridiculous money out of it. And the numbers for what they've made doesn't add up over the time scale of the investments. So essentially, you could invest, for example, £5 in I don't know.
Apple.
Apple. Yeah, you could put £5 in Apple. And then in 10 years' time, you've made 500 million. But you only have put in £5. It wouldn't make sense. Even over that long time, it doesn't make sense. When you would never be, for £5, it might not even buy, I'd be shocked if it even buys you any aspect of an iPhone, let alone a part of the Apple as a company. So overall, it doesn't transpire in terms of the figures and the numbers there. And to answer the second question, how will it affect Spurs? Well, in terms of Joe Lewis himself, I think it was in 2020 where, in terms of his family and the running of Enix Sports holding company is that via, I think it was company houses and the listings that Spurs have via their directors and the owners, he's not listed as being a heavily influential figure within the ownership. Therefore, it looks very, from when you look at it from that perspective, like he's taken a step back. And the family side of the company has taken Spurs' ownership forward as a family, as opposed to it just being him. And obviously, we know Daniel Levy has shares within in Spurs as well as, in partnership with Joe Lewis and stuff. So, like you said, there is that partnership there. Will it affect Spurs? I mean, from a I guess an advertisement and commercial perspective, yes, because you potentially, as a £1 billion sports company, like you said, Formula One have an agreement in place to have a contract with Tottenham. You also already have, had it in place in principle where concerts are played there, boxing events, all the big sort of worldwide events that you can think of, and the NFL agreement contracts there as well. These companies are going to be looking at what's going on with this legal situation and the trepidation around Spurs' owner and think, can we do business with somebody who's been basically considered a con man? That's really what the sort of if this was in Britain, that's what he would be labelled as, a con man. And the way he's been labelled out there is illicit trading accusations. That's the way it's been prescribed from a US perspective. In Britain, we call it a con man. And in terms of how will it affect Spurs, it'll affect Spurs based upon that he won't be able to have much of a say and control over what happens with United. But he's not really had that for a year anyway because he's took a step back. So I don't think it'll affect them massively. And I think really the bigger effect for Spurs is, I'll say it. I think it would hurt more that Harry Kane leaving the football club rather than this situation with Joe Lewis, I guess, to give a comparison. That's how much difference it would hurt Spurs in comparison. And that's to do with football and also a legal trepidation case in the US. Yeah. So look at that what you will in terms of the sort of how that can impact Spurs as a team. Because I think losing Harry Kane's a lot more worrying than having your owner being accused of trading allegations.
Yeah. From the Valley. Yep. No, that's fair. Hopefully that answers your question, Jarvis. But yeah, I thought it was interesting that you brought it up. And yeah, Charlie says, and this is, I think, I assume this is a reference to the youth players question. I'll refer to the poll actually towards the end and see what the community has said, because yeah, it was a very good question. I'll just see if there's anything that's going down. True, do we have we also pedestrian Ahmad? Yep. Oh yeah, lineup is online. What is the lineup? I'm curious to see what is the lineup against. I won't be doing a watch long. Sorry, guys, because I've got work in the morning. So apologies. Otherwise, if I wasn't working, I would, but I do. So yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, I'm curious to see what the lineup is.
I've got the Real Madrid lineup for you anyway. G. It's Lewins in goal. You've got Carvajal, Alaba. I'm trying to do it in order. Rudiger, Fran Garcia. You've got Modric, Camavinga, Tchouaméni, and Bellingham all in the midfield. And then you've got Rodrigo and Vinny Jr., I think, as the forwards.
Jeez, I mean, that sounds like pretty strong.
That sounds it is pretty strong, to be fair. I mean, the only real, I guess, superstar players that they've got on the bench is that Militao doesn't start, Valverde doesn't start, and Kroos and Courtois. But aside from that, it's pretty much full strength. And the new players that they've brought in, such as Bellingham, for example, do start for them.
Yeah, I know. And I can't. For some reason, I can't see the United. If anyone in the chat knows, post it in the chat. That'd be really exciting. I'm looking at scouring Twitter, and I can't see anything. So yeah, let us know what the starting lineup is as we begin to round things up. Glad you said that, Saudi Dave Top, says Stephanie. Let's have a look. Just see if there's any key questions. Yeah, get those likes up. Let's get to 50 likes at least, guys. Come on. There's been 60 to 70 people watching this. Let's get to 50. It helps a lot. I read somewhere that the club views Maino as more of an 8 than a 6. That's interesting. That is interesting. But I mean, I don't know. It's how we've got so many number 8s that can play. I mean, Ericsson can play there, Bruno can play there, Mount can play there. Like, it just feels like, do we need another number 8? So we need another number 6 because Casemiro is going to either get injured or suspended at some point. So we've got to have someone to play there, and it can't be Mount, especially if Fred is going to leave and McTominay maybe might leave. You can't play Mount where Casemiro is. Surely not. Surely not. I'd be very surprised if that happens and very worried if that happens. Just had the horrible problem to head with the Joe Lewis situation with Spurs owner sell. Well, the Qatar front man, your Qatar front. These are the things, you know. Main target 60 likes, but 50 will do. Yes, that'd be. Thank you, Sheikh. 60 likes would be great on this video. If we can get 50, that'd be great too. How come Madrid are not in for Kane? They still need to place. I don't know. I actually don't know. I thought that Kane would be more priority than Mbappe for them. I don't know who's going to be their striker. It's going to cost them.
That's really, I guess, the theory that why a lot of people, and PSG are believing it anyway as well, that they believe that Real Madrid have some sort of an agreement with Mbappe. The one thing that I knew anyway from it was a couple of years ago when he could have left on a 3 and then he ended up re-signing with PSG. He, pardon my language, he completely pissed Florentino Perez off. And he was absolutely furious at Kylian Mbappe that you gave me your word, you shook my hand in Madrid and said that you were coming to Real Madrid, and then you went back on it because PSG offered you a bigger contract and offered you controlling rights within how the club operates and the workings of the club and certain things like that, and bonuses within your contract based upon, performances and, goals, contributions, etc. And it ended up transpiring. But since then, anyway, there's been a re-establishment, and not necessarily. I don't think Perez has forgiven him because, listen, you can forgive people, but you can never forget. But I do think that they will have smoothed something over. And I think really that's why I guess it's quiet from Real Madrid's perspective, why they aren't looking at any number 9, even if it was really a short-term sort of number 9 option. But, I mean, they brought in, potentially bringing in a number 9 for them after you've just spent a big, chunk of money that you have done in investments the last couple of years. Like, I think you spent upwards of 80 million euros or something around about that figure on Tchouaméni. You brought in Camavinga for, I think it was 40 million euros. So there's 120 million euros there. You've spent, I think it was 80 million. So that's upwards of 90 million euros on Bellingham. You've spent really 200 plus million euros on a new midfield. Even for Real Madrid, that's a lot to do. Especially when, like you say, they don't have a number 9 right now.
Yeah. Just a bit of news. I think it was Gene, maybe in the chat, that kind of alluded to it. But I'm just scrolling from Twitter now because there's obviously a Twitter journalist called Alfredo Pudello. It's actually been quite good this transfer window. And he says, sorry, that's obviously Onana who we signed. And he says, because the United Sun have tweeted that, he says that there's a new proposal for Man United's new proposal to Fiorentina for Sofyan Amrabat is in the region of 35 million euros. That's essentially 35 pounds for those in Britain. He is one step away from a move to United. So, I guess my question would be to people in the chat, just going back to Amrabat again, is that are people happy with paying 30 million for Amrabat? And I think that obviously with Fred going potentially 15 mil, I think that obviously more than sort of covers it. I think they have the budget for that. Are we happy with that? I mean, we could. I see no reason why we can't do both deals, considering that both of these players that we're doing deals for seem to be in Italy. We're doing an Italian job, haven't we? We went to Inter. Now we're going to Atalanta. Now we're going to Fiorentina. Now, you know. So, but yeah, I mean, 30 million. Tom, is that good business for Manchester United for Amrabat?
I think considering, like I say, that he had a lot of interest based upon one decent World Cup and towards the back end of the Serie A season with Fiorentina, I think he's been okay. I wouldn't say he's been exceptional. I think the Conference League final, it was okay. I think the Conference League final really was shocking from both teams. I don't really think anybody played, exceptionally well. Any player individually in that final. So
Tom, does the Amrabat sell hinge and outgoings? I suspect it's Fred is the outgoing.
That's why I said when I looked at it from Van der Beek, Fred, and McTominay perspective, if two of the three go, I'd be shocked if they didn't try and bring in one. And like I say, you've already got 15 million from Elanga. You've made I can't remember the figures anywhere around Tellers. It was I think it was around 10 million euros or something like that. By what, £6 million, something like that. You've got 20 already really in the coffers, 21. You've already got a guarantee if you get an obligation to buy with Henderson of potentially 30. So, like you say, you've got 50 there that you've guaranteed to get. You're guaranteed to get the Henderson money, and you've already got 20 sitting there. So,
the lineup has come out. Obviously, it's a friendly. So just for those obviously who are going to be watching the game, I probably will have it on the back when I'm sleeping. So yeah, we've got Onana in goal. So Nana starts. So Nana's debut for Manchester United. Friendly anyway. Martinez, Varane, Luke Shaw, Wan-Bissaka, Casemiro, Mainu, Mount, then Bruno off the right, Rashford and Garnacho. Now, to be honest, I'm looking at this squad and I'm thinking this looks like a very similar squad to what will start next season. Because I've said several times that, like, if Bruno's the captain, I don't know how you fit Bruno into this team if you're going to play Mount. And Mount, with the money you paid, is going to have to start. So how do you fit Mount and Bruno into the same team? You've got to put Bruno on the right, which I don't like. Because I think he's not great there, but it is what it is. But I think Ten Hag prefers him there right now over Sancho there. Garnacho being on the left is interesting. I think that, you think about Anthony. Where does Anthony fit? Obviously, in this obviously is injured. But Anthony coming back in. Does Anthony go on the right? Does Anthony go on the left? Sancho and so on. But I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, looking at this lineup, thinking this could potentially easily be a lineup that Manchester United start even against Wolves. Especially given Martial's injuries, Anthony might still be not match fit, and then you basically only have Sancho. So it's like, well, who else is going? Obviously, I think this changes if Hojlund comes. Because if Hojlund comes, then probably what you do is you put Rashford on the left and Hojlund up top.
Yeah.
And then if Amrabat comes, well, does Amrabat play where Mainu plays, and then you play Amrabat and Casemiro, and then play Mount ahead of them?
I'm not sure though. I'm not sure with that with Amrabat, because I think he'd do basically what Fred did, come in when you need him. And if I'm being honest, I don't really with Amrabat. Even if like the links, like I say, he's been in Liverpool's list, he's been in United's list, he's been in Barcelona's list. Anywhere that he goes, I think he's going to struggle to start at a big European club. I do think he'll struggle. United, I think he'll struggle because you've already got Casemiro that can play there. And even if you wanted to play him as another 6, you still have to then take out one of your 8 midfielders in Fernandes or Mount. It would make more sense to stick him on the bench. Even if he went to Liverpool, I still think Fabinho would be ahead of him if he stays there. You still have the situation, Thiago's there. You still have it where you have Szoboszlai who's just come in. You have McAllister. There's options there for Liverpool. Barcelona, the exact same. Frankie de Jong, Pedri, Gavi. Young players that are ahead of him. So, really, there is a situation where even if Amrabat came to United, he would still sit on the bench. But I think even saying that with Kobe Mainu, I think he will get if I'm being fair, I think he'll get similar treatment to what Garnacho got, where he'll play him when he thinks the game suits him, not just chuck him in at the deep end and put him in the firing line, really. And I think tonight, especially in the Real Madrid game, I think it'll be a testament to see, can you show me something at European level? Because you could potentially face Real Madrid in the group stages, potentially. It's possible.
It's possible.
You could potentially.
Oh wait, no, it's not possible. We can't. No, because Madrid will be in pot 2. We're not.
Oh,
yes,
because
the Barcelona won the La Liga. Yes, we won't face them.
Yeah, pot 2.
So
well, like you say, you still have a situation where you face similar leveled opposition. You'll have one big team in your group. I think really that's normally the bog standard. If you get a difficult group,
I want to face Barca. Well, actually, no. Well, I say that, but then Ilkay will play for them now, so that makes it a bit different because I don't, because Ilkay is like a nemesis of United with how good he is. So I actually don't want it. Without him, I'd be like, yeah, whatever. But with him playing, as if he's playing, it'd be a problem. So, but anyway, let's begin to. Sorry, yeah. Okay, thing says, ask Tom, says Sheikh, if the Benfica cash player swap for Ramos is true, because that's what I heard 2 weeks ago.
As far as I don't, I've never heard anything about a player cash swap for Ramos. Okay. And if Benfica were going to sell Ramos, they wanted 90 million euros. Okay. And United do like him as a striker, but they're not going to pay that much.
Yeah.
And hence they're going for Hojlund. The sort of money for Ramos is what they would have paid for Harry Kane. And Harry Kane was their number 1. So that's, I guess, the best way that I can answer that.
Right. Let's round things up, so because it's getting late, I'm going to go to bed. So, like I ask at the end of every show, Tom, are United any close to selling? The Glazers close to selling Manchester United, buddy? Are we? Where are we with this whole takeover nonsense?
Well, where we are from right now compared to the last time I spoke was that United, before, I had actually heard that there was still the family were discussing with all of their advisors and individually, but they still can't fully agree on what they want. Now, I've heard nothing. Honestly, from a journalist, I've heard nothing for a week. Nothing that I can doubly source and say is facts and true. And I'm not going to, like I said, I won't come on here if I don't do my full research and do my full analysis into what I'm being told. Because I won't just trust what one person says. You never do that in journalism. You double source things. If you can triple source, it's even better. If you get 2 or 3 people that's saying the exact same thing, you go with it. And you run for the hills. But I've not even heard one person say anything at this point in time. Nothing. And the US sources that myself and colleagues have been using for the whole duration of the takeover process, they're just as in the dark as we are. And as you are as Manchester United fans, they're hearing nothing. And they run the markets. They run the same business sort of world as the Glazer family do. And they've heard nothing. And but the one thing, probably apologise to put a negative spin on it for Manchester United fans, is I'd be very surprised if the Glazer family were not in control, or the owners of Manchester United by the time that you play Wolves at Old Trafford. I'd be very surprised.
Yeah. I think they will. But to be honest, I actually said that even before, obviously, we started even discussing and all the takeover news was coming. One of the things I said at the very, very beginning was I'd be very surprised if the Glazers weren't still in charge of Manchester United at the beginning of next season. And we did put a poll out, and I think most people in the community said something similar. And obviously, we're seeing that right now. So thank you for that update, Tom. Shout out to well done everyone, 51 likes. Thank you guys for the support. Thank you for the Doctor channel. Really, really, really appreciate it. Like we don't do a lot of weekly streams, and actually, because we used to do a sale show, but we've obviously not going sale updates. So there's not really a lot to really talk about aside from Manchester transfer news. So as one of the things I'm considering, Obviously, this transfer show until the end of the transfer window, we're going to still do weekly. I am considering bringing back the Red Devil weekly Q&A, and obviously Tom as a guest, and potentially sort of others can come on, where you just ask us anything about football, but also just other stuff. So I'm actually just curious, just while we've got people watching, if you guys want to, if you guys want a weekly Q&A from yours truly, and two, what day do you want it on, basically? So do you want it on a Wednesday? Do you want it on a Tuesday? Do you want it on a Friday? I'm teetering towards a Friday because, like, Fridays, people want it's a bit more chilled, it's a bit more relaxed. It's end of the week. I want it to be much more of a laid-back show where we just basically just talk about anything football related, and then even outside of football. Maybe you want to ask me what's my thoughts on Barbenheimer, for example. So if you are interested in a weekly Q&A, let me know. I'm going to put a poll on in the community tab to see when exactly we want a weekly Q&A, but I'm thinking more towards Friday evening-ish. But obviously, I need people to tune in, so I don't want to be doing a weekly Q&A with only like 5 people watching or something like that. So I'm not going to do it like if people don't want. So if you want it, it'll be a similar time this 10:30. We're going to keep the shows around about this time, and then just fire with the questions and just get people on and be open and stuff. So yeah, that's the sort of this other show that I'm thinking of until we get more sale updates, and until the season starts. Then we can bring you the reviews, the watch-alongs, the match reactions, and so on and so forth. And obviously, I will try and do. Oh yeah, and just as another, sorry, all these announcements are coming out, but it's just that I've got a lot of plans for the channel, and I want to say ahead of time. All my watch-alongs, whether it's pre-season or the upcoming season, are now going to be fully on Twitch. Okay, so Twitch is going to have all my watch-alongs because unfortunately, when I do watch-alongs here, it actually negatively affects the channel. I don't know why, but it does. So all the watch-alongs, live watch-alongs will. So if you haven't followed me on Twitch, consider following me on Twitch. The link is in the description. I'll be doing pre-season and obviously come watch-alongs on Twitch. We'll be there. We'll be live again, chill, etc. So yeah. So those are my announcements. I already see. Sounds good. RDS Friday sounds good. Okay. Post a link to it. Yes. Let me. In fact, yes, that's a good idea. That is a very good idea. Let me do that. And pin it. 2 seconds, everybody. We actually did a nice watch along for the Arsenal game. That's on Twitch actually. It was good fun, good banter. So it should be just post it again. Yep. So hopefully everyone should see that now. And I'll just pin that to the chat as well, because that was my section of Red Marvel. So I know a lot of plugging for different sorts of things, but it's just so that you guys obviously, it is literally just me and thankfully Tom, who's a good friend of mine, who's a journalist, who can obviously give you an insight as well. So, but yeah, just giving you just a bit of a heads up as to where the content is going to be going into next season. We are going to be doing a Manchester United preview for this season, where I'll talk a little about how I feel the challenge is going to go, but also how I'm going to cover Manchester United this season and all the ideas and plans and what have you. So yeah, just bear that in mind. So just to summarize, Red Marvel, non-football related, movie, entertainment stuff. Second channel, head over there if you want the good stuff. Number 2, week Q&A. It looks like Friday's going to be a good shout. So we'll schedule for Friday, but I'll put a post in the community tab. Check out that. And third, Twitch channel, watch-alongs, all on Twitch. Stay tuned for that, or maybe a FIFA or PES stream if we actually get a good FIFA or PES game, but that's probably not going to happen. And also, before I forget, big up Tom. Make sure you follow Tom on Twitter at TomJournalist1. That's at TomJournalist1. He is my GOAT journalist, and has a very good insight into the football industry. and we're really, really thankful to have him to give you guys insight and answer any of your questions. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching the show. Really, really appreciate it. Remember, if you are new to the channel, to like, share, and subscribe to Red Devil Studio. Follow us on Twitter and X, and smash the notification button. Players, Manchester United news, and more. Have a nice day, everyone, and cheers. Peace. Peace, peace.